Okay, our next, our next and final speaker of the night. I've been told that he likes to cook miniature food for some reason and eat it with the tiny hands that he has. So, welcome to the stage to Mandus.
Thank you, thank you. It's heartfeltly exciting to be here. I'm very happy to be able to share this research of mine with you, and it's so bright here. So you see, I'm working in art and science. I'm an artist and biologist to start with as well. And I'm flirting with this kind of yin and yang image here, you know. And, when we went to vacation with my family before, my mother always used to go away for the day, and then she would come back and she would be like, "I have met with a local." And I thought that was a bit silly, but then I realized that that is basically what artist friends of mine are doing. They are saying "I've met with a scientist." And you kind of have some underlying assumption there that you're basically in two different lands. And then sometimes you're passing over a bridge between these two lands. And this is basically how conventional art and science collaborations works. You're imagining that these are two irreconcilable cultures almost that works in different ways. It's a little bit like this, if you know this place. It's Malmö and it's Copenhagen. And they're connected by a bridge, but it doesn't mean that they are the same. And in this, we have also the idea that art and science has they do different things, basically. Art and science have a strict labor division. They are good. Some things art have, and some things science have. And those things are totally different. And you could say, in a very, 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 very brute version, that art has beauty. And science has truth. And with both of these, it comes a certain aesthetical implications. Beauty looks like something, and truth looks like something. But also we know that from this, art isn't always beautiful, and it can be quite horrible at times. And artists take pride in making it horrible. Or if you like sculpture, you know that sculpture is definitely not always beautiful. And in the case of scientific truth, it's more like scientists are chasing truth than rather being truth themselves. And, in this meme that I made, I think that Truth Kid is going to get away. Another way of speaking of this idealized labor division, you could call it, that art does something that science does not, and science does something that art does not, is to speak about virtues. Art wants to prove how the world appears to us, and science wants to prove how the world actually is. That's two very different narratives you get out of that. Art wants to prove how open things up. Art wants to open things up, at least since the 50s and the introduction of French theory into art spaces. It wants to open taxonomies and categories up to break down our systems of understanding the world. In science, it wants to know exactly where the limits of knowledge are. It's rigid. And in this leads to certain problems, because as we saw with the beauty and the truth, there is some kind of internal discoherence. It kind of doesn't live up to what it's supposed to do. And in art, you get to a place called postmodernism. It basically means that you're everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and you're ending up in these feedback loops that just goes on and on, back and forth, and nothing really happens. And in science, you have sort of a large-scale tendency of having research pipelines that sort of doesn't really capture the complexity of its object of study. And this is apparent in obesity research or cancer research. And you want to describe systemic properties, but you don't know really how to do it unless you have computational means, but those are also flawed. So you can say that in both art and science, these virtues are under threat. And what do we need to do? We need to synthesize art and science to get there. But we need to do it in the right way. That's two shitty memes. I'm not even gonna show you them. So there is this idea that art and science forms a union. And the thing with this image, this yin and yang image, is that it forms a totality, as you can see. Like, you know when this circle is finished. The circle, we know exactly what the edges of the circle are. And when it's full, it's full. That's very intuitive in a way. And this is called, in philosophical terms, a transcendental desire. You know before you even looked, you know how things will turn out. And this, I argue, is a problem. Because art and science, as we see before, they sort of doesn't live up to their own promise. They're flaky from internal perspective. Because they share one thing they share, and that art and science, they don't know when they had enough, you know. They just keep on going. So my argument in my research on the theoretical end is that we have to scrap this image of art and science being complementary to each other. And instead, I have another image in mind. It looks like this. Here is a map of Netherlands and Belgium border region, and firstly, it's a mess. Secondly, the point I want to make about this image of art and science is that you don't know where this image starts and ends. You can add another little Netherlands part here, and it sort of doesn't change the theoretical claim of the image. You can add another one as well. It keeps on going, you know? And one other way of putting it is that it's complicated. And my role in all of this mess is basically that guy in the middle. I'm trying to do my best, but it's hard sometimes. I work with organizations and infrastructures that can embody these ideals of being more than complementary art and science logic. One of these is Primer. We're an arts organization located in R&D heavy biotech startup that works with biomimetic technologies, and we work with a sort of principle of proximity. We don't have a pre-established idea what we should do, but rather kind of like check in on each other's progress once in a while, and sometimes we make things out of just being in each other's loops. And we made this project here. It's an art project by Emily Jones and Primer, and I wrote the music for this. Another project is this. It's with Jenna Sutela and Primer, and we made a MIDI video. And the point of this video in relation to this is that we go into the laboratory and we come out with something that looks like a laboratory, but it's not at all trying to like preserve the epistemic principles of the laboratory. It's something else. And that's the point of using art here, to get somewhere else where science cannot. Here is soon, you're the first guys to see this drawing, actually. It's amazing. It's a art and science journal that I'm about to start. It's going to go public in a week or so with Johanna Owen in the US. It's going to be amazing. We're going back to basics, trying to distinguish art from art and technology. So we're working with like fundamental questions of how you observe the world and what patterns you see in there and so on. And now I have to these two last slides are the most boring ones. This is like an organizational flow chart. It's very, very gray.
What my point is that
Organizations are experimental design.